everyone. Welcome to the Zone to Speak podcast. I'm your host, Juliana. Hi, everyone. At Zone to Speak, I know how important it is to stay healthy, strong, and ready for every ride, workout, and adventure. That's why I have got exclusive discounts on some of my favorite products designed specifically for athletes like you. Cyc Plus. Their smart pump is a game changer, compact, efficient, reliable, and perfect for keeping your tires road and gravel ready. Plus, they have radar tail lights, smart trainers, smart fans, and more. Get 10% off the smart pump and 5% off everything else. 35% off Frey Skincare. Skincare made for athletes, designed for skin that sweats. Their all-natural, vegan, and cruelty-free products keep your skin protected and fresh. I have been using Frey for years, and I love it. 10% off Cold Age. Premium vitamins and supplements to fuel your body, speed up recovery, and help you ride longer. I personally take the Women's Fermented Vitamin and Creatine, both powder and capsules. 10% Clearly Not Coffee, the ultimate coffee alternative made from functional ingredients to fuel your focus and energy without the caffeine crash. Try it out. 15% off Omri supplements. Whether you are training, recovering, or pushing for peak performance, their high-quality supplements have you covered. And there's something special from me, your host. As a certified integrative health nutrition expert and holistic life coach, I am thrilled to offer all my listeners 25% off personalized nutrition and life coaching with Genki Wellness. If you want to optimize your health or simply feel your best, head to bemoregenki.com and use the code ZONE2SPEAK. For all the discounts, check the episode description for the links and use Zone2Speak code at checkout. And let these amazing products support your health and performance. Now, let's get into the episode. Welcome to Zone to Speak. Today, I'm honored to sit down with Peter Stetina, former WorldTour pro turned gravel racing icon. From competing in cycling major stages, including the Tour de France, to carving out his own path in the fast-evolving world of gravel. Stetina's journey is one of resilience, reinvention, and passion for adventure. In this episode, I will dive into his transition from the high-stakes world of road racing to the freedom and grit of gravel, his thoughts on the growing influence of the UCI in the discipline, and how he is redefining what it means to be a modern-day cyclist. Get ready for a conversation packed with insight and the kind of determination that makes Peter Stetina a true pioneer in the sport. Pete, welcome to Zone to Speak.
Thanks for having me. Yeah, that's a very nice intro. Thank you for those kind words.
Thank you for making the time to be here. It feels surreal to chat with you. Been a fan, watched your career. Very excited to have you. So, let's start at the beginning. What inspired you to transition from World Tour racing to gravel racing?
I mean, it's a very complicated answer with a lot of shades of gray. You know, there's no black and white decision moment, and it was brought about by a long evolution of my journey through cycling, I think, and that, you know, as a junior, it is, and growing up, especially in the early aughts when it was, you know, the Lance Armstrong and Jan Ullrich eras and road cycling was the pinnacle, and you learn that the Tour de France is where you want to end up, and that is the dream. But being in that top tier long enough, I think with many cyclists, especially those abroad who have to move to another country to pursue that, it does slowly start to wear on you. You know, you miss weddings and graduations and family reunions and all these things, and the selfish nature of the sport and the dedication. I think it starts to break you down over time. And I think that's just exacerbated by having to live abroad to do it. And then there's a few poignant moments throughout my career where I think I just found myself searching for something more beyond only pro sport. It was my crash in 2015 and realizing that, there's people in your corner who are only in your corner when times are good versus true friends who are with you in the good and the bad. I think it was creating my own Grand Fondo to give back to the community in early days. And it started as road, and then almost being told by team managers that that's a project for retired riders. And then, and being almost shunned for, doing like a big ride for everyone else. And then I think it was also just this growth of gravel, and that I had always ridden off road. I had started on the mountain bike as a junior. Growing up in the Colorado mountains, a lot of the roads are dirt anyway. So you'd even ride a road bike on just big dirt roads just because
Yeah.
they're not paved out there. And all of a sudden, these races that I'd always kind of just done for fun and training in the off season or whatever are getting more people are talking about them. And, then there's this, and it's been pretty documented. And of course, we can talk about it, but it's the aha moment in 2019 where I actually did one of the bigger races, and it was astounding, like how much it resonated on a national scale. And it was that aha moment where, like I said, this combination of a little bit of disillusionment with the world tour life and this aha moment of like gravel's growing and this is going to be a thing. And that kind of was the impetus I needed to jump ship.
Yeah, you were one of the first pros to leave World Tour gravel, like Ian Boswell,
Mhm.
the Australian Nathan Haas.
Yeah, Hassie came a bit after.
Yeah. How
Yeah,
do
it
you
was.
see nowadays even that there's even more pros coming into the scene as well?
I mean, I think there was always layers, right? I think it's, Ted King was the first guy with a racing pedigree to do gravel, but he had actually just retired and was doing these gravel events before they were competitive as an ambassadorship and for fun for his sponsors. And, I did it. I was, the first to be a gravel pro. That's like this my thing that I really stamp my foot on is these races are hard enough and prestigious enough. They're not a quote unquote alternative calendar anymore. Like they deserve to have riders focus solely on them because they are this cool. So I think I was the first gravel pro. That's like the proudest thing I've done in my career. And that created a shift within the sport, I think, as a whole. And Ian Boswell and Lawrence Tendam, they fell into it again out of just this decision to want something different from the sport. I think all these early adopters, it was wanting something different. And then Nathan came a year or two after, and he was really the guy that, really decided to do that in Europe because, the American scene was a couple of years ahead at that point. And so Haas kind of experienced some of that US stuff, and he's a good friend and he's smart, and he was able to understand what made sense, what was happening in the US, and really bring that with the European culture mindset, which is, it's always different cultures, different things click, and I'm sure, like you said, we'll talk about that with, UCI and the US mindset versus the European mindset on that. But yeah, I think it's more and people are coming into it, but it's overall, I think the bones remain that it's an escape and a fresh start, a new adventure.
And is there anything looking back that you miss from the World Tour?
Oh, I mean, for sure, I wouldn't trade those days for anything. I mean, when you're in the Tour de France, that's the pinnacle of the sport, And I the camaraderie, the team aspect of it, and it's with mixed emotion that I say the simplicity of it. In that, it's really nice when your only job is to race your bike, and you have these guys that, I was talking with Matteo Jorgensen on a training ride this winter when he was visiting California, and just everything is planned for you, like how much you eat, the bikes, the tire pressure you ride. it's your job is just to pedal. And it was in my years too, but even more so now with the nutrition aspect. And while that's really nice, I don't know if I miss it because it's the hard days here when you're, what we call a privateer and you're basically a small business owner. You're managing every angle, every contract, every media shoot, social media obligations. You kind of wish that, I wish I could just pedal my bike. But then I take 30 seconds to think about it. I'm like, no, I like owning my own story and my own destiny completely.
Yeah, there's something to that. Being in the world tour, like you said in the beginning, I think commitment is an understatement because you're eating, breathing, living that almost 24/7. I mean, you barely have a break to go see your family, I guess, unless your family's on the road with you.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, I think that's something that probably for myself quicken that shift, and just that, my wife is a career woman. She has a good job here, and she was always going to follow her own destiny too and never be on tour with me. And so I'm sure my life would have looked very different had I, met a Catalan girl in Girona and, we had just done bike racing in Europe. But the fact that I was always coming back and forth, I think it quickened that shift for, racing in a different way.
Yeah. You briefly mentioned your accident in 2015 while you were at the Tour de Basque Country. Has that changed your approach to racing and training or even your outlook in life?
100%. I mean, I can't. That was one of the biggest life shifts ever. I mean, it's when you have a life-threatening crash and a career-threatening crash, the doctors, some doctors were pessimistic I would ever walk normally again. So you really take stock and you have to be pretty introspective on what you're doing and what you want for the rest of your life, right? I mean, my career was so up in the air. I literally had a business plan for what I was going to do next in 2015. If I didn't save my career and get a new team and return to racing, like I literally still have papers that I've stashed away of like my next thing, so it makes you realize that it's, racing isn't everything. There's a lot outside of that. It made me desire community and appreciate the bike even more and not take what I have for granted. I definitely would say I was just a very cut and dry, pure monk racer in 2014. It was about weight and watts and making the tour team and racing and only racing. And after that, it was different. I appreciate different angles in life. And then also the risk factor. I think once any rider, and you look at, and I don't think this is just me, I think you look at many of the riders, the big riders who've had a notable crash, whether it's Froome or Egan Bernal or Chris Froome. And I mean, they're much bigger champions than I ever was on the road, but it's harder to take the stupid risks once you know what's on the other side of a bad crash. After that crash in races, I could risk it when it truly mattered, right? If it was you had to be the first 5 wheels into this climb to try and win the stage or have a podium, I could take that risk. But then there's a lot of young riders who have never experienced that and they just have that sense of invincibility. And, there's riders that were risking it in the downhill with 200K to go just to gain a few spots, and that's where I think you start to be like, you know what, this fight's not worth it. You have to pick and choose your battles,
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. I can see the mindset shift, because it's just too dangerous. And like you said, if you have never had that experience, you might still be fearless. And it's not that you are not fearless and you're still taking risks, but there is that consciousness. Oh my God, now my dog is howling on the background. Great.
He's doing his job. He's guarding you.
The cat is meowing for something and then she sympathizes.
Okay.
Okay, hopefully it stopped. Yeah. Okay. The crash, and then you had your road to recovery, and that took
Yeah.
a while. And then just take me a little bit about how did you go about the recovery, and how long it took you to get back on the bike?
Well, it was actually very quick in that I was in my second year of my contract at BMC, and I was coming into free agency, and I had had a very good spring, and discussions were already starting to begin around renewal. And then the crash happened, and obviously, and I don't fault them at all, but all of a sudden, Pete might never ride the same again. So those conversations stopped, and and they still did everything correctly by the contract. Again, I'm not faulting BMC. They paid me the whole year. They gave me all the support to return to recovery. I was still on their roster, but naturally, they weren't ready to re-sign me. So I did everything I could because I had my back against the wall to save my career. And I decided that I still want a working leg for the rest of my life, whether or not I'm a bike racer, right? Like I want to hike or run with my kids someday. I want to go skiing. Like I need a working body, and I'm still a professional athlete. It's just that my training is recovery and rehab right now. It's not training to try and win a bike race. So I use the same dedication in training that I did for recovery. So it was 5 days a week, Monday to Friday, physical therapy here, like maximizing all the insurance benefits and overpaying. It was having a few doctors that really cared about sport that were always keeping their eye on me. And it was one of the more aggressive pushes on a timeline that any physical therapist had seen. Really just literally pushing the bone to the point of almost re-breaking in an effort to get the movement back as fast as possible and break down the scar tissue. And after 3 months, I had weight bearing. I got the okay to have weight bearing again. So I was able to start putting pressure. My leg had not touched the ground for 3 months. It was stiff as a board. And so that time, all the physical therapy was just laying on a bed with someone like basically like moving my knee for me. So at 3 months and one day, I got on the bike for a first time, and I was able to train for 3 months with a short crank, a 90 millimeter crank, and then they were adjustable. So every time I got a little bit more bend in my knee, I would up the crank to like 100 mils, 110 mils, and eventually I got to 175 millimeter or 172.5, whatever the normal is, crank, and I could do a full normal bike. So at 3 months and one day, I went outside for the first time, and I was able to train for 3 weeks and start the tour of Utah while I was still walking with a cane. So on
Wow.
the sign-in stage, I was in a cane at a pro race, but a 2.1, but
Incredible.
I was in the peloton, and I finished the tour of Utah. I made time cut every day, and because of that, Trek at the time were looking for a couple Americans to slot on their roster, and they said, if you can already finish the tour of Utah, we believe that you can make a full recovery. So they gave me a 1-year deal at the minimum salary for the UCI and let me prove myself. And that
That
year,
must
and
have felt good.
yeah, for sure. I mean, it was still a long ways from where I was. And, it's such a weird game, especially in pro sport, of it's all small percentages. It's half a percentage, from being dropped to winning a race even. So it's, even though you think you're back and then you go a few more months and you get through a race and it's like, oh my gosh, this is another level of, I didn't realize like I was still this bad. And then that happens again, So in 2016, I actually, on that minimum salary, I made the Tour de France team for Trek, and I did my second tour, and they signed me again for, multiple seasons, which was really that stamp that I was back. And I remember it was in that Tour de France that I actually got my stretching. I got my knee to touch my butt again for the first time during the middle of the tour. It was like, whoa, that was That was big. I remember Luca Guercilena, the general manager of Trek at the time. He was on the bus pre-stage, and I I was, doing a little stretch, and I did that, and I was like, "Oh my god, I touched my butt," and you saw him kinda be like, "What the hell? I have a rider that couldn't do this?" Like, he was like, "That's what you're happy about? The tour is about to start, Pete." But so that was pretty funny.
That is funny. It's all about the small wins. That's
Yeah.
hilarious. Yeah. Well, I'm glad you made a food recovery, and I guess you never needed a knee replacement. I know you talked a little bit about my needing a knee replacement.
It's coming.
Mm,
Basically, it's damaged enough in there. The doctor said if I don't do a bunch of other sports, because cycling is non-weight bearing and your knee is locked in and you just pedal straight up and down. It's not a dynamic move like playing football or running or something. So as long as I don't do a bunch of other sports, I have a very good chance of finishing a full pro career before needing a knee replacement. It's just that it's wearing out like twice as fast as a normal person per se.
okay.
So
Got it.
I will have a knee replacement, but I'm hopeful I can retire first.
Good,
Yeah.
good. Yeah, hopefully you can keep riding strong and,
Hmm.
achieve all your goals and then get that knee
Oh, thanks.
replacement. Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah. So if talk a little bit about gravel and touch on UCI. You have been very vocal about UCI getting into gravel.
Yeah. Pete always has
And
an opinion. I hear the critics.
and I like it. I appreciate it. It's a little bit disappointing when people are afraid to speak up and
Yeah.
losing sponsors or not being invited to certain races. I think it's good. It's refreshing to have an opinion. So thank you.
Well, I will say there's reason behind every opinion, and I'm always open for the discussion on the pros and cons. And I've come around to see other side, especially more of the newer adopters, such as your Peter Vakoc's, who's a good friend, but he does all the UCI stuff. So it's interesting to see both sides. But yeah, I'm definitely happy to share my point of view, being one of the earlier adopters.
Yeah. So since UCI started getting to gravel and where we are now, do you think the UCI involvement will help grow the sport, or does it risk losing what makes gravel unique?
I mean, I think that's a very loaded question, and just that answer has changed over many years, and it really is geographical, the answer. I think I will say, and I think it's pretty clear, the UCI came in because gravel was the fastest growing discipline in the sport, and they realized to make money they need to be here, and
Yeah.
they never came to any of the big races in the US. They never looked at the magic recipe of why is gravel growing faster than road? Why is it booming? They just said, "Oh, this is gravel. We're going to do gravel now, and we're going to do it our way." And for me and many others, that doesn't feel right, because I always am very conscious of like understanding why I was able to make this career switch, and what is that magic recipe that made gravel so fresh? Like, why did it grow so fast? Why was there a reason that everybody was, even if they didn't know it, they were looking for something new and different? And the UCI came in and they used their template from XC mountain biking and road, and they just said, this is how we're going to do it. It's going to look and feel totally different. It's about the racing only and not about the journey. We're not looking at Unbound. We're not looking at any of these other races. We're just going to do it UCI style. And I still am adamant that if gravel just becomes road racing on dirt surfaces and a landing place for people who are retired, which I know a lot of people see me as like, oh, Pete was never the big champion on the World Tour, or Pete, is a retired road pro. It's, yeah, if gravel becomes a landing place for that, then it's just a secondary discipline. It's not on its own. Like, we need to remember why gravel sets itself apart. And I think people need to realize, like, I came here to continue to be a professional racer because that's where gravel was coming in 2019 and 2020. And I think people, need to realize that it is these other angles that I and many of these other riders have embraced. If it is just about the result only and the bike race and the exclusive categories and going home, then the adventure and the communal journey that made it so important in the first place will be lost. That said, I realize that, first of all, in Europe, I want to say, I think, in the American West, in the vastness, in the Midwest, we just have hundreds of kilometers of open roads, right? And they're big, wide spaces and no populations. And you can have this big journey for 300 kilometers across Kansas, and I think in Europe, it's such a denser country that you don't have those spaces. You will run into populations. So you naturally have to have more of a circuit feel, more of a tighter technical course, more of a hybrid road and trail together, using roads to link trails. Like that's just, you ride on the terrain you live in, right?
Yeah.
So that does fit that UCI format of a circuit better. One of the few differences is like the Trocca in Girona. And that's why it's like the biggest race in Europe, because it is a big journey and an adventure. And then beyond that, I mean, I think it's even changing a little bit in the US with the new guard, is that like there's the younger generation of gravel pro. You have your Sophia Gomez and Keegan Swensons, and they just want to race, and they are advocating very heavily for stricter rules and harder closed courses and safety measures and professional only racing, versus some of the earlier riders like myself or Lauren's. We want more of like the communal altogether experience and the big adventure. So I do think there's just a bit of a mindset shift, but again, I do worry that at what cost? I mean, is the race really more important than the gravel ride? And there's no wrong answer. And I think that's where I've kind of ended in the end, is just, I'm sorry, this is such a long answer. I'm working through this in my head as we talk, but
No, it's good.
I think it's really just, at the end of the day, my friend Sarah Sturm said this. It's like you vote with your registration. There are so many gravel races right now. In Europe, you guys have the UCI, you have the Gravel Earth,
Series.
yep, which is more of like the original American style, right? The adventure. And then you have a bunch of other independent races. And like, there's enough to just do what you want. Like, you can find the ride that makes sense for you, and you vote with your registration. And it doesn't need to be political. And I've learned that the hard way, in that, I will happy to share my opinion here and when anyone asks in an interview. But at the end of the day, like, I'm not the commissioner or the rule maker for anything. Like, I'm going to do it my way, and there's other riders to do it their way, and it's all great.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, and I'm on your side on this.
Okay.
I am part of the gravel community, so obviously I want to continue to race and have adventures in the community.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's great to see pros, but it's great to race with them and be inspired by them, and not to have this division. Luckily, here in Spain, there are so many independent races and the Gravel Earth Series, so we'll see what happens.
It's been really impressive watching Spain grow in the gravel culture, because I saw the little graphic from, is it Povlu?
Povlu.
But they had the dots of every gravel race in Spain. It's like, oh my gosh, this is what was happening in 2021 and 2019 in the US. It's Spain is a very open country, so you do have more of those adventurous routes at your fingertips. So it's been very cool to see the growth happening.
Yeah. And what do you think should be, gravel should evolve to in terms of format of races and prize money?
Yeah, I mean, I it's really cool that there is proper prize money and we can make a living right now racing gravel. Again, that's gonna, just like road, it's gonna pull riders into who come at it more from a business only angle, right? They're not there for the lifestyle of it. They want to make their money and go home and win their races. And and that's fine though, because I realized too, when I was 28, trying to make the Tour de France team, that's all I cared about. Like, and I have a lot more perspective after a longer career, right? And I don't blame anyone for trying to make money racing their bike while they're at their physical peak. I mean, as an athlete, you only have a short timeline as a professional while your body can do this. So you should make as much money as you can. This is your career, right? And that's pro sport. And it's any sport, right? Whether it's Formula One or football or tennis, this is how pro sport is. You make as much money and you do the best you can. Like that's, and competition is competition, and that's universal, and that's never going to change, no matter what the discipline is. I do see, because of the professionalization of it, it is widening that gap. It is less of the full adventure together. And I think it was a natural evolution. I think it's a challenge right now for organizers to find the balance, catering to the pros, but also, I have my own event, and understanding again, the magic recipe of gravel is like, the pros bring the media. It's important if you want to get written about, if you want to have future registrations, but they're only 10, maybe 15% of your registrations. Like, the primary focus of any gravel organizer is still going to be the other 85, 90% of riders. The ones that are paying, the ones that are taking their vacation days from their normal job to come and do this event. And that's who you have to really focus on. And so there has to be a blend and a juggling act. And it's not easy.
Yeah, no, I bet it's not for the organizers. I mean, like I said, I love the mix. I was, for example, at the migration gravel race.
Oh gosh, that looks hard.
Oh yeah, it's tough. I did the second edition, and it was so cool because you have 4 days, because it's 4 stages, and we had Lael Wilcox, Lachlan Morton, Tia DeMarque. You're just hanging out, everybody together. So much fun. I hope this format continues.
Well, and I will say those 3 riders are some of the original riders that understand that formula. So it was very cool that you got to do a race with all 3 of them. And, Lockie and Mattia are good friends and colleagues. I don't know Lael very well, but yeah, I do think too that stage race format is actually the healthiest for what you speak of, because it forces you to hang out for a longer time. A one-day race, there are pros who only want the result or the podium, to come in, do the race, go home to their hotel, sit in their space legs, try to get a massage and not experience. But when you're on a safari tour, or for us in the US, the Oregon Trail, you're forced to hang out at camp, which it's a good thing in the long run.
Yeah, it's a very cool format. But I was also talking here on the podcast with Jess Era, that founded the Last Best Ride.
Yeah.
And it's a one-day race, but she was able to transform this one-day race in a big community weekend. So that's amazing as well.
Mm-hmm.
And tell me about your race. You have the dirty...
Pay dirt.
Pay dirty. Yeah, pay dirt. Sorry,
Pay
not
dirt.
dirty.
Yeah, pay dirt. It's, for those in Europe, it's a mining term, right? Because we're in Nevada, the silver state, with the big opens, the mines, the spaces. So when you hit pay dirt or you strike it rich, that's when you find silver or gold in the dirt, right? You struck it rich. It's like the best dirt you can think of. So that's pay dirt. It is my effort to give back to the cycling community and create the best day on 2 wheels, and also use it for positive change. It's very much a passion project, in that it's all about everybody else. And to do that, and kind of in Jess's vein, or maybe the camping vein, it's trying to force people to have a better experience together and have a great day on the bike still. And I think there's a way to do that while having professional competition, but also not take it so seriously. So we do that by having very long time segments, kind of like an enduro mountain bike, but actually uphills, downhills, 15 to 30K sections. So that's how you you ride. If you and I were going to go out for a ride together, we're going to get to a climb or a section of trail and we're just going to rip it and go as hard as we can and have fun. Or maybe I'm going to be doing an interval on a climb. But then at the top, you stop, you wait, you have a snack, you hang out for a minute, and then you ride together until like the next fun downhill. And so I was like, let's do that for pay dirt. So you have a long time section and you're on the clock and you are racing, or whether you're racing the professionals or whether you're racing your friend that you traveled with to buy the beers that night or whatever, you want to be competitive. You have a number, you signed up for an event, but then you cross the timing mat and there's an aid station and you can talk and you can regroup with your friend and you can roll to the next part and then go again. And yeah, and that also makes the aid stations a lot more fun. We have hot dogs and full grilling picnic during the middle of the race. And like, if you want to eat a hot dog and digest it and then race in 1 hour, you can. Like, as long as you're back by podium time, it doesn't matter. And we actually went too far in that we even had time bonuses for silly games the first 2 years. But when you're trying to actually have a professional race and then the results change because someone can throw a tire further on a field, it takes away from the professional angle. So I realized that I went too far and we scaled it back. So now we still have games at the festival where you can win tires or GPS computers from Wahoo, and you don't even have to be a good bike racer. So
That's really cool.
Yeah, and we have
I love the format, that you can wait for your friends or whoever and then chill or not and then race again. I really would like to try that. That sounds really, really cool.
Well, if you have any desire to come out, it's May 17th in Carson City, Nevada, which is right near Lake Tahoe.
Okay, must be beautiful.
It's really fun. And then I'm able to use it for affecting change in the sport too. So the pro women have a big prize purse and the men don't. It's just, my whole career. And because I'm a male pro, unfortunately, I benefited from it just being a male pro, but the men's race was always the main show and the women's race was shorter and no television and earlier in the morning. And so at pay dirt, I said, because I am a male pro, I can literally just change it. Like, you can't get mad at me for hurting my own profession. So we have a $10,000 women's purse for the pro women only, and they are the focus of the professional race. There's the media, the focus, the favorites, the talking of the favorites before the race, because I believe when you create more media attention and more focus, like the endorsements, the bigger sponsorships come the next year. It grows from that. So this is my small effort to create true equality in cycling. And the men are just great. There's a really nice podium still. There's a bunch of beer at the race. Like, there's still the results sheet. It's a good race. But the pro women are the focus for the competitive part. And we have some really fast women. We have Sarah Sturm coming back. We have Heather Jackson coming back and a bunch of the former podiums. And then my other big thing is that juniors race free, always. So we have our own junior race. And when I was growing up in Colorado, the local racing scene, this was road racing, in 2003, 2005. As long as you raced in the juniors, you race for free because you should be in school. You shouldn't be having to have a job or having to ask your parents to do bike racing. Like, that's how organizers make money in an incorrect way. Like, we need to foster the future of the sport and make it healthier. So juniors race free. If you're a very fast junior and you want to race in the pros, you have to pay the pro entry fee. If you want to compete for the money or the biggest prizes and you want to take it very, very seriously. But if you want to race in the junior category against other juniors, your registration is $0 and there's a podium afterwards. And we're trying to get more kids racing bikes.
Amazing. I love that initiative, both with the juniors and the female pros. Kudos to you. I'll be sharing on the episode description everything about pay dirt.
Oh, thank you very much. We're trying. It's a lot of fun.
I want to ask you about Traca because I was here, and parts of it I was watching. I think it was live on YouTube, and I was really rooling for you. It was so cool to see you win. And I don't know if you know this, but as I was watching a little bit on YouTube as well, it was funny because they were the narrators. I don't remember who was, but they were like, oh my God, the Americans are coming here now and starting to win.
Yeah.
But anyways, jokes aside, how did it feel to win Traca? And I know you're coming back for 2025
Yeah.
to defend your title.
I will say easily that this is the most special win of my career. And I didn't realize that. I didn't know it was this big. I had heard about it. I had heard okay, there's a race in Girona. It's the Unbound of Europe. That's what everyone in the US was saying. It's the Unbound of Europe. It's big. And I was like, yeah, I know Girona. The terrain is very cool. I know it's going to be a very fun course. And if I'm flying all the way to Spain, I'm going to ride the 360. Like, I don't want to go to Spain for 5 hours. I want to go to Spain for 11 hours.
Yeah.
Like, it's a long travel. And I saw some of that before. I heard like Paul Voss, who's a good friend because he races American gravel stuff, saying like, okay, finally, Pete and some Americans are coming here to race in our country, which I give him shit because my whole career I had to go to Europe to race roads. So don't feel bad that you have to come to America, Boss. It's just we're only getting even a little bit now. But I did the race, and the story of the win is why it is so special. It's all these little bits that I know fairy tales like this do not happen in cycling, or if they ever did, they never happened to me in my whole career. And so I was almost like, maybe I should just retire because I know a win like this and these circumstances, it will not happen again, ever, I don't think. But then after that, it was it was huge. The media around it, it was for all my sponsors. I mean, the metrics are like winning a stage of the Tour de France in terms of the impressions, the story, the attention. It was absolutely crazy. And I mean, yeah, it was mind blowing. So yeah, 100% I'm back. It was very cool that Canyon was there, like the CEO, the CFO, the big bosses, they were interested. And then, we had a good week with myself and Carolyn Schiff and Peter Vakoch all doing really well. And so they're going to be the title sponsor and go even bigger with Traca for 2025, which is very cool to see. But yeah, I mean, it was a very, very special week.
Very cool. I'll be here, so maybe we can catch some coffee, but I'll be cheering for you.
Oh, thank you.
And so do you think this will be your most rewarding personal experience you have had off the beaten path?
The Traca, you mean?
Yeah.
I mean, I would say that I've come to understand that the race result doesn't actually matter that much, in that for my job and to validate my sponsors and my career, I'm a bike racer and results matter. You have to do some good results. I mean, that's the basics of it. But I am realizing that the most rewarding thing I ever did was to be the first rider to say gravel professional. Like, that term was never used before. And that I am so happy that started something and gave a new discipline. I mean, a lot of others. I'm not taking the credit, but it was an important part of making a shift in cycling, and that there is now another discipline for other riders to make a living and to race bikes. And I know that is the most rewarding, and a little bit my legacy of the sport was being the gravel pro, the guy that left the World Tour. And I don't take that for granted. And so that is, someone's going to win Traca this year, and I hope it's me, and someone's going to win Unbound this year and Traca next year. And the race wins will change. The times will get faster, but I know right now that my move to gravel is the most important and rewarding thing I ever did, because I bet on myself when other people laughed at me, and it's proven to be the best thing I ever did. But in terms of a race story and a win, yes, the Traca is the most important personal victory. And it's equally up there in terms of, you know, having a big part of the 2012 Giro d'Italia when Ryder Hesjedal won that. But obviously, selfishly, the personal victory is always a little more special.
Of course. Yeah, absolutely. You did start a movement when you became the first pro gravel rider. And like I said, watching you win the Traca was a highlight even for me.
Thank you. I felt the love from around the world and the amount of messages that came in. And it was still the most beautiful day just because of all the little things, the unexpected circumstances, more than just crossing the line, you know? So there
Yeah.
was...
No, my husband was also racing the 360 and I knew he wouldn't get the message, but I, it's one of those things that you want to share with, of course, we both love cycling. So I'm like, is that no one? Is that no one?
Thank you. Yeah. Yeah.
And I just want to touch on a little personal note because it's something that you shared publicly about your twins. I think we've been through that tough road with you a little bit.
Oh, I'm
just
sorry
so happy that. Oh, no.
Hard.
Yeah, just watching your journey, not me personally.
Oh,
but sorry, my English getting in the way. Yeah, no, just happy that the twins are well, but just want to check in. How is family life? How is everything? And how you balance? Because you're not on World Tour, but you're on tour.
Yeah. No, for those who didn't quite understand my comment then, I guess we had a very hard journey to become parents. Multiple years of trying and fertility treatment. And we're open about it because it's a struggle that many people feel like they have to suffer with quietly. And we said, screw that. Like, we're still proud. And we have our twins, one boy and one girl, and they're the best thing ever. They're 2.5 and they're healthy and they are spicy and the personalities are coming out very differently in the best and the worst of ways. And it's so hard, but it's so much fun. And it's, for sure, I think every parent can relate, but it's been a journey. Yeah, it changes the race calendar and the job in that I know when I have to leave for a race now, it's more important to make it count. I can't just leave to screw around, like if sometimes you want to quit, I think it gives me an extra reason to stay in the fight and to do it right. And even training, it's less coffee stops and more like, okay, I got to get back because the nanny is off at 4:00 and, and it's also making the race calendar much more dedicated. It's, I can't, unfortunately, I would love to stay in Girona for 3 days after Traca and do the sponsor requests and the photo shoots and the meetings because I'm finally in Europe with European sponsors. And I have to say, I can't, like, my wife has been alone with the twins, even though we have a nanny for work hours. Like, she's been alone with the twins now on weekends for 2 weeks. And I have to go home. Like, it's because then she will break. So the race calendar is very much dedicated on looking at the blocks of knowing when I can travel. And then there's this much time after for family recovery, not my physical recovery as a bike racer, but family recovery at home for everybody else and to spend time with those little kids. So it changes everything I do around it because I do want to be a present parent and be there for a lot of things.
Yeah, I bet it takes a lot to balance. Can't imagine a pro schedule and being home. So I see how you have to run, quote unquote, after races to get back home and now you can't stick around.
Yeah, I just had the first race of the year this weekend. The grass, it's a local race, but it's always important to start and support your local races and have a little test. And I won the grasshopper race, which is great to start the season off with a win in the best way. But then literally Sunday night, like, my daughter woke up at 3:30 the night after a race and I had to get up with her and just get her to calm down. And she went back to bed, but Dada did not. So Dada got a good hard race and then 5 hours of sleep. So, but that's life. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's part of life. But they grow, and then we miss those moments, It's good memories.
Okay. I'll take your word for it.
And so what's next for you in 2025? Any big events besides Straka or projects you are excited about?
Yeah, I've released my calendar a few weeks ago. It's been a big work in progress because I like to connect with every organizer that I'm going to and speak with them and, understand if this is worth it, for me to come there and to create a calendar that's very much a blend of, I think going all the way back to the beginning of our conversation, I can't just follow only the biggest races every time because it's only this day in gravel. It's only about the race and the result a little too much. So I know if I have a good balance of adventurous races and maybe smaller races, that almost that's how I feel like my gravel community cup. Because then I can show up to the biggest races such as Unbound or the Traka and be like, it's time to only race, and I can be okay with that. So that's how I feel kind of both sides of my cup, of my boat. And yeah, but I mean, I'm also, for the first time, I'm not going to do the Lifetime Grand Prix, in just that I've done it for 3 years and gravel's always been about exploration and a new adventure. I think it's clear from this conversation, I had the most success doing it my way and following my heart. And for me, that means new experiences. There's so many races that I hear people talk about, and to do well in the Grand Prix here in the US, it meant really only focusing on 6 races and everything else was extra. And I can't do that for my internal peace. So I will still do some of the Lifetime gravel races, but this year is very much about races that are new to me that I want or that actually suit me. If I'm going to leave my family, I'm not going to go to a mountain bike race that I'm not going to do very well at, that my wife is just going to be like, why did you leave our family so you could go get 15th in a mountain bike race that you suck at? Because I am also a realist and I have to be very blunt, and I hope you don't take this egotistically, but just where I am in my career at this point is my sponsors expect a win or a podium, and I expect that from myself. So I need to go to races where I can do that. And
you have to make a count. I don't see as egotistic. And I also love that you are following your heart as well while doing that and showing up at local races.
Well, thanks.
Not a lot of people are doing just what's trendy. And I mean, you are pro. You have that bug. You want to be in the podium.
Yeah,
it's a given.
Yeah. So it's about finding that balance. But yeah, the big races I attend, they're only races that I do think I can podium or win. So.
And where can listeners follow your journey and upcoming races? Is Instagram the best spot?
Yeah, Instagram is the main focus, along with Strava. That's a really good one for me. It's popular where I live, and I make a bigger effort with photos and titles, and I do have the website with the schedule and any media projects that I'm taking on and stuff. It's just peterstetina.com. So those 3 are my focus.
Awesome. I'll share everything on the episode description. I know we're on the top of the hour, so I want to be honest with what we agree. And really thank you for sharing your journey with me and the listeners. And I wish you all the best for 2025. And hopefully I get to see you in Girona and even better on top of the podium at Traka.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I'm excited to come back for that.
Thank you so much.
And that's all for today's episode. I want to thank the listeners for tuning in. Your support means everything. If you enjoyed this episode, please consider following, leaving a review, and sharing it with your friends.